let me tell you about the most overlooked dynamic in human interaction, the status hierarchy that governs every social exchange, every romantic encounter, every professional relationship you'll ever have. Most people live their entire lives unconscious of this system, wondering why they get the responses they get, why doors remain closed, why certain people treat them with inexplicable hostility. But once you understand how this game actually works, everything becomes clear, including why some women can be viciously cruel to men who are simply trying to connect with them. Here's what most men don't realize. When a woman is mean to you for no apparent reason, she's not reacting to what you did. She's reacting to what your interest in her represents about your perception of the social hierarchy. Women are biologically programmed to mate upward. This isn't a character flaw, it's evolutionary survival strategy. Throughout human history, a woman's reproductive success depended on securing resources, protection, and genetic advantages for her offspring. This created selection pressure that made women naturally attracted to higher status males. This programming runs so deep it operates below conscious awareness. A woman might intellectually believe she doesn't care about status, but her emotional responses will still follow these ancient patterns. So when a woman perceives herself as high status and a man she views as lower status approaches her, she experiences this as one of two equally insulting scenarios. Either this man is completely delusional about how the social hierarchy works, or he's communicating that he believes she's lower status than she perceives herself to be. Both interpretations trigger a defensive response, because her status, her value in the sexual marketplace, depends partly on being seen as someone who attracts high-quality men. Being publicly associated with men she perceives as beneath her actually damages her social positioning. This is why the cruelty often escalates when there are witnesses. She's not just rejecting you, she's performing her status for everyone watching. She needs to make it clear that your interest is so inappropriate, so misguided, that it requires public correction. Understanding this dynamic isn't about judging women harshly, it's about recognizing the system we're all operating within. Because you do the same thing in contexts where you have higher status. Think about it. If someone significantly beneath your professional level repeatedly tried to pitch you collaboration ideas, wouldn't you eventually become irritated? If people who hadn't earned the right to your attention kept demanding it anyway, wouldn't your patience wear thin? Status protection is universal human behavior. We all guard our position in various hierarchies because association with lower status individuals can drag down our own perceived value. This might sound harsh, but it's simply how social dynamics function. And understanding this reality is crucial because it reveals something profound about the nature of success and self-belief. The brutal truth is that potential is invisible to everyone except the person who possesses it. The outside world can only see your current results, your present circumstances, your visible achievements. They cannot see the fire burning inside you, or the capabilities you haven't yet had the opportunity to demonstrate. This creates a fundamental disconnect between your internal reality and external perception. You might know with absolute certainty that you have extraordinary capabilities waiting to be unleashed. But until you translate that potential into visible results, you're asking people to take you on faith. Before we continue, I'd really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to like the video and subscribe. Thank you in advance. Now, let's keep going. And here's the harsh reality: most people won't do that. They can't afford to. Their own status and credibility depend on making accurate assessments of others' current value. Getting it wrong by overestimating someone's worth can damage their own position. This is why believing in yourself when no one else does isn't just important, it's absolutely essential. Because there will be a long period where your conviction is the only fuel keeping you moving forward. Think about every person who ever achieved something significant. Before they proved themselves publicly, they had to endure months or years of being underestimated, dismissed, or ignored. Their belief in their own potential was literally the only thing standing between them and complete surrender. During these dark periods, when friends suggested they be more realistic and experts told them they didn't have what it takes, their inner conviction was their lifeline. This faith wasn't blind optimism. It was based on deep self-knowledge and unwavering commitment to developing their abilities. But here's what makes this even more challenging. The people around you often won't want you to succeed. Your breakthrough forces them to question why they settled for less than their potential. This is why you can't expect support or encouragement from others during your journey toward greatness. This is where most people fail. They look around for external validation, for someone to confirm that they're on the right path. When that validation doesn't come, and it usually doesn't, they begin to doubt themselves. They start questioning whether they really have what it takes. But here's what separates those who eventually break through from those who don't: the ability to maintain unshakable faith in their own capabilities, despite zero external confirmation. The people who ultimately succeed are those who can look at their current circumstances. Maybe they're broke, maybe they're unknown, maybe everyone thinks they're chasing impossible dreams, and still maintain absolute certainty about their eventual triumph. This isn't delusion, this is vision. There's a crucial difference that determines whether your self-belief leads to breakthrough or breakdown. Delusion is believing you can achieve something you're not willing to work for, that you fundamentally lack the capacity to accomplish, or that should come to you without effort simply because you want it. Delusional thinking ignores reality, dismisses feedback, and expects results without corresponding input. Vision, on the other hand, is the ability to see potential that others cannot yet perceive, combined with the commitment to do whatever it takes to realize that potential. Visionary thinking acknowledges current reality while maintaining unwavering focus on future possibility. The person with genuine vision doesn't expect immediate success or instant recognition. They understand that translating potential into results requires time, effort, skill development, and often multiple iterations and failures. They're willing to pay the price that their vision demands. They also maintain brutal honesty about their current capabilities while holding space for their future development. They can simultaneously acknowledge where they are now and commit completely to where they're going. This kind of honest self-assessment is crucial, because betting everything on yourself only works if you're betting on something real. You need to identify your authentic strengths, natural talents, and genuine areas of potential, rather than wishful thinking about who you'd like to be. The challenge is learning to distinguish between these two states accurately. This requires deep introspection, honest feedback from trusted sources, and often years of experimentation to discover where your true gifts lie. Ask yourself, what comes naturally to you that others struggle with? What problems do you solve instinctively? What activities make you lose track of time because you're so absorbed in them? What subjects could you discuss for hours without getting bored? What challenges energize rather than drain you? These clues point toward your genuine potential, the raw materials that, when properly developed and applied, could become extraordinary capabilities. Once you identify these areas of authentic strength, your job is to believe in them completely and commit to developing them regardless of external opinion or temporary setbacks. This kind of self-belief isn't arrogance. Arrogance is overestimating your abilities, believing you deserve success without earning it, or thinking you're superior to others without evidence. Arrogant people often lack the work ethic and humility necessary for genuine achievement, because they expect recognition without results. True self-belief is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your capabilities and trusting your willingness to do whatever it takes to develop them. It's the unshakable conviction that you have something valuable to offer the world, combined with the commitment to persist until that value becomes undeniable. The person with authentic self-belief doesn't need constant external validation because their confidence comes from within. They're not trying to convince others they're special. They're simply operating from the assumption that they have unique gifts worth developing and sharing. This inner certainty changes everything about how you move through the world. You take bigger risks because you're not afraid of failure. You see it as education. You persist longer through difficulties because you know they're temporary obstacles, not permanent barriers. You don't get derailed by other people's opinions because you understand that those opinions are based on incomplete information about your true capabilities. You stop seeking permission from others to pursue your dreams because you realize that no one else is qualified to grant that permission. You stop looking for external validation of your worth because you've learned to generate that validation from within. Most importantly, you don't waste emotional energy trying to prove yourself to people who can't see your value yet. You simply focus on building that value to the point where it becomes undeniable to everyone, including your former doubters. This shift from external to internal validation is perhaps the most crucial transformation any ambitious person can make. As long as you need others to believe in you before you can believe in yourself, you'll be limited by their vision rather than empowered by your own. But when you flip this dynamic, When you learn to believe in yourself first and let that belief drive your actions, you become unstoppable. Your confidence becomes self-generating rather than dependent on outside sources. Your motivation comes from within rather than from external encouragement or pressure. This is the path of the sovereign individual, not someone who needs others to believe in them, but someone whose belief in themselves is so complete that it eventually compels others to believe as well. But here's what most people don't understand about this journey. It's supposed to be lonely. You're supposed to be the only one who sees your potential at first. That's not a bug in the system. It's a feature designed to test your commitment and strengthen your resolve. If everyone could see your potential immediately, it wouldn't be potential anymore. It would be realized capability visible to all. The fact that you have to maintain faith in yourself when no one else does is exactly what makes eventual success so meaningful and well-earned. This solitary phase serves multiple crucial purposes. First, it tests whether your belief in yourself is genuine or dependent on external validation. If your confidence collapses the moment others don't share your vision, then it wasn't real confidence. It was just hope dressed up as conviction. Second, this period of isolation forces you to develop internal resources that will serve you throughout your entire journey. When you learn to motivate yourself without external encouragement, to persist without external support, and to maintain vision without external confirmation, you become psychologically anti-fragile. Third, the loneliness of the early stages filters out those who aren't truly committed to their vision. Most people will abandon their dreams the moment the path becomes difficult or socially uncomfortable. Only those with genuine conviction will persist through the desert of obscurity to reach the oasis of recognition. This is why external validation is actually counterproductive in the early stages of any ambitious endeavour. If people are constantly telling you how talented you are before you've accomplished anything significant, you might become dependent on their approval instead of developing genuine inner confidence. The person who succeeds without early encouragement develops something far more valuable than talent. They develop unshakable self-reliance. They learn to generate their own motivation, their own confidence, their own sense of direction. They become their own source of fuel rather than depending on others to keep their fire burning. This self-reliance becomes their greatest asset because it makes them immune to the inevitable setbacks and criticisms that accompany any ambitious endeavour. When someone tells them they're not good enough, they don't question their fundamental worth, they just work harder to prove that person's assessment wrong. This self-reliance becomes their greatest asset because it makes them immune to the inevitable setbacks and criticisms that accompany any ambitious endeavour. When someone tells them they're not good enough, they don't question their worth. They just work harder to prove that person wrong. When they face rejection or failure, they don't interpret it as evidence they should quit. They see it as feedback about what needs improvement. Their sense of self-worth isn't tied to external outcomes because it's anchored in something deeper, their commitment to becoming who they know they can be. This mindset shift is what allows people to persist through the years of obscurity that precede breakthrough. While others are looking for someone to validate their dreams, these individuals are busy making their dreams reality through consistent action and continuous improvement. They understand that success is not about getting permission from the world to be great. It's about taking that permission from yourself and then doing whatever it takes to justify that decision through your results and contributions. This approach requires developing what I call outcome independence, the ability to maintain full commitment to your goals while detaching from specific timelines or external recognition. You pour everything into your work not because you need immediate rewards, but because the work itself is meaningful, and you trust that consistent excellence will eventually be rewarded. This outcome independence protects you from the emotional rollercoaster that destroys most ambitious people. When you're not dependent on immediate results for your sense of worth or motivation, you can persist through the inevitable valleys that every significant journey contains. You stop checking constantly for signs of progress and instead focus on the process of improvement. You stop measuring your worth by other people's responses and instead measure it by your own standards of excellence and growth. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it makes you anti-fragile. Instead of being damaged by criticism or setbacks, you become stronger. Each challenge that doesn't break you becomes evidence of your resilience. Each person who doubts you becomes motivation to prove them wrong. Each failure becomes education that brings you closer to success. This anti-fragility is what separates those who eventually break through from those who break down. The person who depends on external validation for their confidence will be crushed by the first major setback or wave of criticism. But the person who has learned to generate confidence internally actually becomes more determined when faced with obstacles. They develop what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, the ability to become stronger, wiser, and more capable as a result of facing and overcoming difficulties. What would destroy someone with fragile self-belief only serves to strengthen someone with anti-fragile conviction. Eventually, the results speak for themselves. The potential you believed in becomes visible achievement. The vision you maintained in solitude becomes reality others can see and acknowledge. And here's the most satisfying part. The same people who dismissed you or treated you poorly when you were unknown often become the ones trying to associate with you once you've proven yourself. The woman who was cruel to you when she perceived you as low status suddenly becomes friendly when your success elevates your position. The colleagues who ignored your ideas suddenly want to collaborate. The industry that rejected you suddenly wants to claim you as one of their own. This transformation reveals the purely transactional nature of most human relationships. People's behavior toward you often has little to do with your intrinsic worth and everything to do with your perceived value in their social or professional hierarchy. Understanding this dynamic is simultaneously liberating and sobering. It's liberating because it means their earlier rejection wasn't really about you. It was about their perception of your status. It's sobering because it reveals how conditional most relationships and opportunities really are. But this understanding also gives you power. When you realize that most people's treatment of you is based on changeable external factors rather than unchangeable personal characteristics, you understand that you have more control over your social reality than you might have thought. The key is to focus on building genuine value, rather than just seeking status for its own sake. Status without substance is fragile and temporary. But when your elevated position is based on real capabilities, meaningful contributions, and authentic achievements, it becomes much more stable and sustainable. This is why the journey of believing in yourself when no one else does ultimately leads to something deeper than just external success. It leads to genuine self-respect based on what you've overcome and accomplished, rather than what others think of you. The person who has traveled this path develops a different relationship with praise and criticism. They appreciate recognition when it comes, but they don't depend on it for their sense of worth. They listen to feedback for its practical value, but they don't let it shake their fundamental confidence in their capabilities. This transformation isn't about revenge or proving people wrong, though those can be pleasant side effects. It's about the natural consequence of developing genuine value and allowing that value to become visible through your work and achievements. The people who mistreated you weren't necessarily bad people. They were just operating within the same status-conscious system we all navigate. Their behavior toward you reflected their perception of your position in that system, not your actual worth as a human being or your true potential. This perspective protects you from developing bitterness or resentment that could poison your own character. Instead of seeking revenge against those who doubted you, you can focus on continuing to build and create value. Instead of holding grudges against those who rejected you, you can appreciate how their skepticism motivated you to prove yourself more thoroughly. The highest form of vindication isn't making others feel bad about their earlier treatment of you. It's becoming so successful and fulfilled that their opinions no longer matter to you at all. When you reach this level of inner security, you can actually feel grateful for the obstacles and rejections that forced you to develop genuine strength and resilience. Understanding this dynamic also protects you from taking people's behavior personally and allows you to focus on what actually matters, building the capabilities and achievements that will eventually command the respect you deserve. When someone treats you poorly based on your current status, you don't need to defend yourself or argue about your worth. You just need to continue building that worth until it becomes undeniable. When someone dismisses your potential, you don't need to convince them. You just need to realize that potential through consistent action and excellent work. This approach saves enormous amounts of emotional energy that most people waste trying to change other people's opinions about them. Instead of fighting for recognition you haven't yet earned, you invest that energy in earning recognition that can't be denied. The irony is that the less you need other people's validation, the more likely you are to receive it. When you stop chasing approval and start focusing on excellence, people naturally begin to notice and respect your work. When you stop trying to prove your worth and start demonstrating it through results, Skeptics become believers without you having to convince them of anything. This is why your belief in yourself is the only opinion that truly matters. Everyone else is working with incomplete information. They're judging you based on where you are now, not where you're going. They're evaluating your current circumstances, not your ultimate potential. They're assessing your past results, not your future capabilities, but you have access to information they don't have. You know what you're capable of when you're operating at your best. You know how hard you're willing to work when something truly matters to you. You know how committed you are to your vision when challenges arise. You know what obstacles you're prepared to overcome to achieve your goals. You also know your own learning capacity, your ability to adapt and improve, your resilience in the face of setbacks. You know what drives and motivates you at the deepest level. You understand your own patterns of growth and development in ways that no external observer could possibly comprehend. This inside knowledge gives you a massive advantage, but only if you trust it completely. Only if you're willing to bet everything on your own assessment of your capabilities and potential. The moment you start doubting yourself because others doubt you, you lose that advantage. You begin operating from their limited perspective instead of your expansive vision. You start seeing yourself through their eyes rather than trusting your own inner knowing. This is perhaps the most tragic mistake ambitious people make, abandoning their own vision of what's possible in favour of other people's much more limited assessment of their potential. The outsider's perspective, while sometimes valuable for feedback and course correction, is fundamentally constrained by what they can observe and understand from their position. They can't see your internal drive, your willingness to sacrifice, your capacity for growth, or your unique combination of talents and interests. They certainly can't see the vision that motivates you, or understand why you're willing to endure temporary hardship for long-term achievement. They're making assessments based on incomplete data and their own limited imagination about what's possible. This is why protecting your self-belief is one of the most important skills you can develop. Not protecting it from reality. You need honest feedback about your progress and areas for improvement, but protecting it from the opinions of people who can't see your full picture. This protection requires developing what I call selective listening, the ability to distinguish between useful feedback and noise, between constructive criticism and projection, between wisdom and limitation. Useful feedback comes from people who understand your field, have achieved what you're trying to achieve, or have demonstrated wisdom in areas relevant to your goals. This feedback is specific, actionable, and aimed at helping you improve rather than discouraging you from trying. Noise, on the other hand, comes from people who haven't accomplished what you're attempting, don't understand your vision, or are projecting their own fears and limitations onto your situation. This input is usually vague, discouraging, and more about their discomfort with your ambition than about your actual capabilities. Learning to filter between these two types of input is crucial for maintaining the confidence necessary to persist through difficult periods while still remaining open to growth and improvement. Surround yourself with evidence of your capabilities. Document your progress, no matter how small. Celebrate your wins, even the minor ones. Keep a record of compliments you've received, problems you've solved, and obstacles you've overcome. This evidence serves as fuel during dark moments when doubt creeps in. Create rituals that reconnect you with your vision and remind you why you started this journey. Whether it's reading your goals daily, visualizing your future success, or reviewing the problems you're trying to solve, these practices help maintain the clarity and motivation necessary for long-term persistence. And remember that every person who ever achieved something meaningful went through the same process you're experiencing. They had to maintain faith in themselves when faith was all they had. They had to keep working toward a vision only they could see clearly. They had to persist through periods when everyone around them thought they were wasting their time or chasing impossible dreams. Your current circumstances are not your final destination. Your current status is not your permanent identity. Your current results are not your ultimate potential. If you can hold on to this truth, if you can maintain unshakable belief in your capabilities despite temporary setbacks and social rejection, you'll eventually transform that belief into reality. And on that day, when your success becomes undeniable, you'll understand that every person who doubted you was simply limited by their inability to see what you always knew was there. The only question is, do you believe in yourself enough to make that day inevitable? Because everything else, the opinions, the rejections, the temporary failures, is just noise. Your belief in your own potential is the signal that cuts through all of it. Trust it, protect it, and let it guide you toward the life you know you're capable of building. If this understanding resonates with something you felt but couldn't articulate, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your willingness to bet on yourself in the face of doubt matters more than you know. Your commitment to your own potential despite external skepticism is what separates those who eventually break through from those who give up too early. The world needs what you have to offer, but first you need to believe that completely.